You are watching the Poor Boys Horology podcast, the podcast for watch enthusiasts on a budget. Your host for today's podcast is Dr. Ed DeVries, an amateur horologist whose personal collection includes Timex, Rolex, and everything in between. If you are interested in dive watches, dress watches, designer watches, military watches, automatic watches, hand-winding watches, quartz watches, or pocket watches, the Poor Boys Horology podcast is about to become your favorite podcast. So click like and subscribe. Then sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of the Poor Boys Horology podcast.
Quick wristwatch check. I am wearing my homemade Batman watch. And maybe you remember when we talked about this, maybe it was back in 2019, we talked about how I made the homemade Batman. You take an Invicta, a Model 8056, and you sand down or you grind down that Invicta logo there, that Invicta branding, and then you repolish that. You replace it with a black and blue bezel. I put a sterile blue dial in there, put new hands in there. And so it put a generic clasp on there. And so I've got a Batman, very affordable. It cost me about $160 to do the whole watch. And that was buying the Invicta and then, of course, buying the sterile dial, the hands, the generic strap or bracelet and clasp and so forth. And so the whole shooting match was pretty affordable there. And so that's the watch that I'm wearing today. In fact, it's a watch that I haven't even had on my wrist in probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I just saw it there in the box and I said, you know what? I am going to put that watch on today. Actually, I looked at a lot of watches that I haven't looked at in quite some time because I was putting them in a new box. And we're going to take a look at that box here in just a moment. But the box is made by Sicuro. Sakuro, securing your most precious possessions. The Sakuro collection is brought to you exclusively by Shop NBC. The collection fuses style and functionality, creating an assortment which allows you to conveniently store your jewelry and timepieces with confidence. Shop online at shopnbc.com or shop by phone at 800-474-6762. Nice little card here. Let me say that the watch box that I'm about to review is probably one of the greatest watch boxes that I have ever seen. And that's why I'm so excited to review it for you here today and to have my watches in the box. But first, let's go to our nostalgia segment. Last month, we showed my fourth car, which was also the first brand new car that I'd ever purchased, a 1993 Ford Festiva. The next car was also a brand new car purchase. It was a 1994 Ford Escort sedan. And the reason that I chose the sedan, the reason I purchased this car, is because it looked like a little miniature Ford Taurus. You know, in the past they had four-door Escorts, but they had a hatchback. This one had a trunk. It was a true sedan. And it wasn't a five-door, it was a four-door with a trunk. And I just fell in love with these cars when I saw them hitting the Ford dealership. And of course, I was getting at that stage in life where I felt like I needed more of a family car because we were starting a family. And I felt like we needed more of a family car than, you know, the college kid car. And so you see the pictures of it up on the screen and the interior, the exterior, and I really did like this car a lot. And I think you'll enjoy it as well. I think you'll enjoy looking at it as well. And so let's roll these commercials, and then we'll have a quick commercial from the Barnes Review TBR magazine, and then we'll go into the review of the Sakuro 3-tiered watch box.
than any small car in America. Ford Escort.
Open your web browser and type in www.barnesreview.org and discover the Barnes Review magazine. In the Barnes Review, you will read vignettes of man, from the prehistoric to the very recent, from forgotten races and civilizations to first-person accounts of World War II and the late Cold War. There is no more interesting magazine published today, nor a more significant and important subject than real history. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review. You can subscribe to receive the Barnes Review magazine in its print form, or in convenient electronic delivery. Our host has been a subscriber to both formats for years. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review.
Appearing now on your screen is this Sicuro 3-tiered, 3-drawered watch box. And as you can see here, that it has a flat top, whereas pretty much just about every watch box, every storage case for watches that I've ever seen that had multiple layers or multiple tiers or multiple drawers, the top drawer was always clear glass and it lifted up. And so you can't really put anything on top of it because it lifts up. Whereas with this box, as you can see, the top is flat. That means that you can put another box on top of it and have access to all 3 drawers without having to remove a drawer without having to remove the top box from the bottom box in order to access what would be the top drawer of your bottom box. And that's what drew me to this box at first, and that's why I had began inquiring about it. You can see here in this picture that this is the Sakuro box. This is my older watch box, which is a 2-tiered unit with the glass door that lifts up on the top that is sitting above the Sakuro box, and then on top of that is a nylon case that holds 10 watches, just a single layer. It's a travel or portable watch case. And then on top of that are just some hats. But you can see here how I've got those stacked, how I have my personal watch collection stored. For a number of years, I've been looking for something that I can put underneath the primary watch box. I had a number of watches that were sitting loose in drawers, that were sitting in just plain storage containers, in other types of storage units, just because I didn't want to buy a second watch box that had the top lid that raised up. I wanted to have unique drawers that fit under here. In fact, I kicked around the idea a few different times of building my own watch box and just never got around to it. So I came across this Sakuro unit and my interest was definitely piqued. Here that the previous box, the older box, is a regular sized watch box. It holds 24 watches, 12 on the bottom, 12 on the top. And it's just your average size watch storage box. Whereas the Sakuro box, as you can see, is a little bit bigger. It's a little bit wider, it's a little bit deeper. And you can see that the older box sits on top of it and that it's just a touch smaller. So the Sakuro box gives you a generous amount of room for storing your collection. If you wear larger watches, you'll like this. If you wear 40 millimeter and smaller watches and you don't wear any larger watches, you might feel like you're wasting a little bit of space. Or you might wish that they would have just gone ahead and given you a 6 wide row instead of a 5 wide row. And so the result is that you have a bigger box that I guess you could say holds fewer watches. The Sakuro box, each drawer holds 10 watches. Your typical watch storage box, each drawer would be 6 wide and would hold 12 watches per drawer. Of course, they do make watch boxes that only hold 5, but as a rule, the typical watch box would have 12 watches per drawer, and the Sicuro has 10 watches per drawer. So the box above, my old box, held 24 watches. The Sicuro box holds 30. But you can look at these pictures here, and you can see that the pillows are wider in the Sicuro box than they are in the regular boxes. And so that gives you a little bit more room, especially for bigger watches. And you'll also notice, as I've got the 2 drawers side by side, you can see that the Sakuro drawer is generously bigger than the regular watch box drawer. In a few moments, I'm just going to show you the Sakuro box from a number of different angles, and you can see this is a beautiful box. It's heavy, it's well constructed, it has a beautiful finish. The pictures really don't do the finish justice. In fact, the picture that I took on top of my dresser probably gives you the best aspect of its finish, and even then there was a lot of light reflection and other things. You really couldn't see it, but you're just going to have to trust me on this because the photographs don't do it justice. There's a beautiful deep grain in this finish, and it's beautiful. And this is just an awesome watch box. As you can see here, the top is flat, so you could set another watch box on top of it and still have access to all three of your storage drawers and therefore to all of your watches. If you're not using it in addition to another box, in other words, if this is going to be your only watch box, you'll see that there's a little indentation on the top. You could stick watches there. You could stick, your money clip or your wallet or your cell phone or, whatever it is that you would sit on top of your dresser can sit on top of there. And you can also see that there is a little slight, just a little slight piece of glass there at the one end, on the right end. And so you can look down into the box if you don't have something else sitting on top of it. Or you can set something on top of it like I do. And you can, so now I essentially have 5 drawers instead of 3 because I'm using 2 boxes. And so this is just, I think, maybe one of, if not the best watch boxes that was ever made. Now, the retail price on these is about $200. You can see them occasionally on eBay and other places, sitting in about the $160 range. Every once in a while, if you find one that is supposed to be damaged, Sicuro will sell those on their website, and they'll offer you a little bit of a discount if you go to the shopnbc.com website or call 800-474-6762 and you ask them if they have any flawed units, any scratched units, and they will let those go for about $130 plus postage and handling. And this unit here that you're looking at is supposed to have a flaw somewhere. They told me they were sending me one of their flawed units for a review. That's kind of what happens sometimes when people give you stuff. But still, I'm honored to be able to review this box. And let me say this, if I wasn't happy with it, I wouldn't be giving it a glowing review. In other words, I'm not just giving it a glowing review because they gave me a watch box. They sent it to me. This was a flawed unit. This was I really can't see where the flaw is. They say that the finish was bad on the back side of it. Well, first of all, the back side's up against a wall. What difference does it make? And secondly, I couldn't tell where the bad finish was. So I'm not giving this a sterling glowing review because they gave me a watch box. I'm giving it a sterling glowing review because I have just fallen in love with this thing. If they had sent me a crappy box, I'd be telling you, hey, this is a crappy box. But that wasn't the case. This is a beautiful box. It's a well-built box. And it does something that none of the other boxes out there do, which is give you access to all 3 drawers pulling out without having that top drawer lifting up. The only picture that I thought to take of the packaging, I really wish I would have done an unboxing video, or maybe I would have taken some pictures when I was taking this puppy out of the box, because let me tell you, they packaged it extremely well. It was in a box that was within a box that was within a box, and it's just amazing the precautions that they took to make sure that no damage came to this product during its transit to me, which was sent via UPS. And so you can't go wrong with this Sicuro, Sicuro, this Sicuro watch box. This is not the only watch box they make. This is just one of several that they make, and you can find them at shopnbc.com, or you can call 1-800-474-6762. And you'll want Sicuro securing your most precious possessions.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
If you're like me, and I'll bet you are, you like to be on the cutting edge of honest news and accurate information. 26 times a year, the American Free Press newspaper can be delivered to your door, packed with the kind of uncensored news that I know you're going to appreciate. If you're ever dissatisfied with your subscription to the American Free Press, their guarantee is that you just drop them an email and they will gladly refund the unused portion of your subscription. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.americanfreepress.net. Once again, www.americanfreepress.net. And find out about the American Free Press. Do it today.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
I received an interesting question recently, and the question was this. Why is it that World War I and World War II era battleships had huge clock towers on their decks? In next month's Poor Boys Horology podcast, I'm going to answer that question. Let me just say that the research that I've done, it's a very good question, and it has a very interesting answer. But for the remainder of today's program, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some more of my conversation with Jeff Cook. If you remember last month, our podcast was a conversation between myself and fellow subscriber, watch enthusiast, fellow amateur horologist, Jay Cook, who has been one of the early subscribers to this channel and a personal friend of yours truly. And so Jeff and I ran out of time for our conversation. We continued on, and so we're going to have the remainder of Jeff and I's conversation, and we talk about a few different things, including a welcome back Cotter watch. Yes, you heard me right, a welcome back Cotter watch with John Travolta's mug on it. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other things. But first, we're going to have just a brief commercial from our friend Clint Lacy, and then the remainder of the podcast will be the continuation of last month's conversation between myself and subscriber watch enthusiast Jay Cook. Stay tuned. Phone with our good friend Clint Lacy. So your newest project is you've started a publishing company, Foothills Media, and you'll be publishing 3 tremendous books. The first of those is your book, The Beginner's Guide to False Flags. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about that book?
If you were wondering how we ended up at this point in our history and everything's going on, Beginner's Guide to False Flag takes you from the beginning of the country until the election of Donald Trump, Charlottesville, the rise of the communists, and the Russian collusion hoax. The rape of Delaware County is a story in which a United States veteran defended himself against a known drug felon, only to find out that the local police were in on it. Crooked prosecutors, and one of those prosecutors was actually arrested coming back from an island in the Caribbean in a murder for hire plot. And it just details just how corrupt one small county can be. And in the book, I said that Delaware County, Oklahoma, in the past was a safe haven for outlaws from Missouri and Arkansas. And what the reader will find out, it still is. Blood in the Ozarks, expanded second edition, 156-year-old government cover-up in which out of control Union officer led his men to murder men, women, and children at a Christmas gathering in the Missouri Ozarks. I founded Foothills Media in 2019 because I'm dedicated to bringing you the truth.
Thank you, Clint. I know that our listeners are going to want to check out Foothills Media, so tell them how they can do so.
Well, you can visit us at foothillsmedia.net, and that will take you to our website where you can browse the books, read our blog posts, and catch up on news that you won't find anywhere else in the mainstream media. foothillsmedia.net.
But your next watch purchase, what do you think it's going to be?
I would have to ask the wife for permission to spend money on a watch, because she's getting to the point now. She goes, "Don't you have enough watches already? And how many watches can you wear at one time?" And I've jokingly said, "Well, I guess I could wear 2 or 3, one or
I've
2
seen
on
your
each
watch
wrist.
box. You have like 9 watches, Jeff. I mean, I have that many watches floating around in the top drawer of my dresser.
Yes, my collection is not as diverse and as big as many others out there. For me, it works. Right? In all seriousness, I only wear one watch at a time, and I have kind of my 2 or 3 favorites. And depending on what I'm doing and where I'm going, those are the 2 or 3 that I wear. And I personally haven't seen the need to have, 50 or 100 watches. But that's me. And again, as I said earlier, that's what makes watch collecting and watch wearing so fun, is that everybody's different. There are those individuals that only collect Timexes for whatever reason, and they want every model. Or, even if it's a Rolex, they only want Submariner, and they want the original Submariner and every other, upgrade to that model. And they just want to be able to say that they have every variation and improvement and upgrade from when it first was launched until, current day. So again, it's just what makes it so fun, is that you can tailor one's collection to one specific need, wants, desires. I mean, there's people out there that collect every available and made Casio G-Shock. I mean, I've been amazed when I've seen some of the online forums, and people have 50 G-Shocks of every color. And again, I think that's what makes watch collecting so much fun, is it can be tailored to one specific, what your needs, wants, and budgets allow for. So, the hard question is, I really don't know. My favorite watch of my whole collection is the Rolex Sea Dweller 50th anniversary, and it's probably on my wrist 95% or more of the time. I really haven't found a reason to go buy a new watch after buying this one.
Well, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm looking at watches, and for example, Pagani Design has come out with a couple of really, really, what I think are just really sharp watches, and I look at the specs on these watches, and they're very impressive, and you say, well, then why don't you just go ahead and get one, especially because, I could get one for about $89. You say, well, why don't you just go ahead and get one? It's like, because I have 20 other watches just like it. It's like, do I really need another one? It's the same thing. I was looking at a watch the other day, and I thought, man, this is, I was just loving everything I was looking at about this watch, but I thought, you know what? How many Rolex Submariner homage watches does one need in their collection? I mean, I was even looking the other day at a Vostok, and I like to collect the old Soviet timepieces. That's probably why you mentioned them. I was about to get it, and it's like, you know what? I've already got, however many of these. So again, it's I'm starting to get to that point now where I'm hitting that saturation point where I don't really see myself buying a lot of new watches. I'm not going to say I'm never going to buy another new watch. That would be that would be a lie if I told it. But I really do kind of see myself. In other words, whereas for a while it seemed like I think I was texting you a picture of a new watch on my wrist every couple of weeks as I was getting a new one. And you noticed I haven't texted you any of those pictures in who knows how long now.
Exactly. And I was thinking more about your question. What would be my next watch? And I don't know if you've ever seen it or if your listeners know about it, but it's the Breitling Emergency watch. And I saw this at a dealer probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it's purpose-built that it uses 2 different frequencies, the International Distress Code frequencies. So if you are a ship, an airplane, if you're scaling Mount Everest, or in the backwoods of the Amazon rainforest, if you need medical help or a mayday situation, you unscrew the antenna and pull it out from the case back, and it immediately activates the homing beacon signal that is picked up on an analog and a digital frequency. And I personally don't do that kind of flying, boating, yachting around the world, going to Mount Everest. But I think if I did, or I decided to take up those activities, I would probably look at this Breitling Emergency as a backup locator beacon purpose-built watch. And only because I've never seen anyone wear one in the real world.
You said emergency, and that scared me for a minute. Because if you can remember, when we were younger, I remember I had a Star Wars watch. It had R2-D2 on it. I had a Welcome Back Cotter watch. It was a hand winding 7-jewel Swiss movement. In fact, I just decided to go ahead and type that in, and I could buy me another one right now on eBay for $35 with free shipping from some guy out in Las Vegas, Nevada. His name's Charleston Mall. He's got 84 positive feedbacks. Anyways, this Welcome Back Cotter watch has John Travolta's mug on it there, and a little leather strap. It's $35 or best offer with free shipping. He's only got 2 available, though. They're brand new in the box, but he's only got 2 available. All right. I'm on the phone again with Dr. William Von Peters, who has been my personal doctor for the last 10 years. For whatever reason, people are afraid of COVID, or if they're not afraid of COVID, they're definitely afraid of catching something right now. I think with all the hysteria in the media, all the hype that's been built up, people are just afraid of catching something. And you were telling me the other day that you have a product there in your line, your homeopathic line, that was an immunosystem booster. Not really a drug, but just something that we would take. It's a natural formulation that would help boost our immune systems and decrease our chances of catching all of the things that are supposed to be out there right now. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about that?
We do have a formula that's designed based off of the symptomology they were saying. Because homeopathy, the philosophy is like cures like. And whereas allopathy, which is what the MDs use, is opposite cures. So, if you have something that, for example, if something's too hot, you give something that would cause a heat in the body, and it will tend to dissipate the heat then. Such as coffee on a hot day is an example of that in real life. But anyway, we have some things. I have developed one called Corona Quest, which basically covers all the symptoms they were claiming that that it has, primarily just as a preventive to help the body hopefully be able to recognize the coronavirus. We don't make, in none of our products do we make medical claims for. It's just to assist the body in healing and being able to heal itself. Because if you start making medical claims, then of course they're going to come after you. So, like the Corona Quest, it's designed to assist the body in recognizing the coronavirus and strengthening the immune system against it. But we make no medical claims for it.
And so, if somebody wants to get a bottle of this and try it for themselves, what do they need to do?
Basically, just go to the website for a company, LifeQuest Formulas, and so that would be www.life, Quest, Quest, Formulas, that's plural, lifequestformulas.com.
All right, lifequestformulas.com, and for our radio listeners who happen to be watching on YouTube, that'll be on the screen as well. You'll want to go to LifeQuest Formulas, and you'll want to check this out, and you'll want to check out some of the other homeopathic products that Dr. Von Peters is offering there as well. So when you said emergency, I thought, did they actually make a watch? Because remember back in the 1970s, there was a TV show called Emergency?
With Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto is LA Fire Department paramedics. Know the show well.
So when you said that, I thought, don't tell me they made an emergency watch for that TV show. They could go right in there in the collection with the Welcome Back Kotter watch and the Happy Days watch with Fonzie's face on it,
I'm glad to say, or proud to say, that I've never owned one of those kind of watches. I'm sure I had a Superman watch or something. My parents maybe bought me way back when, but no, I think a purpose-built Breitling Emergency with, emergency beacon signal notification. I think that's a watch that I've never seen out in the real world. It would be very unique. It is very large. I've seen it at a dealer showcase, and for the money, really wasn't for me, and I would never use it. And they even tell you in the instructions when I was looking at it, the dealer, it's a one-time activation. So if you activate it, there's no turning it off, and unless it's a real emergency, if it's a false alarm, you're going to get billed for having, the Coast Guard or search and rescue come find you in the Amazon somewhere.
One of our big sponsors here on the Poor Boys Horology podcast is TBR Magazine, the Barnes Review magazine, and one of the contributing editors at the Barnes Review is my good friend Harold Scharnhorst, Harold Hestovich Scharnhorst. Harold is someone who I have enjoyed interviewing several times on both of my radio shows, and if this weren't a horology podcast, I would interview him right here on this show as well. But Harold had a tremendous story to tell. When he was a little boy, his dad basically raised the army that repelled the Nazi invasion of Norway during the Second World War. And so Harold grew up with a dad who was basically the commander of the Norwegian Armed Forces. He was the leader of the Norwegian Underground. And then when the war was over, Harold and his family immigrated here to the United States. And Harold ended up enlisting in the United States Army. He ended up working some very interesting jobs. Currently, he is a professional photographer, writer, and broadcaster living in the state of Idaho. And he took all of his story and he wrote it down in a 470-page book. And this 470-page book has over 300 photographs. And the book is called An Immigrant Remembers. Harold sent me a copy of this book about 2 years ago, and I read it, and the story was fascinating. I could not put it down. An Immigrant Remembers. And you'll want to get your hands on this book. You really will. And you can do so. Of course, you see it on the screen, the cover An Immigrant Remembers by Harold Hestovich Scharnhorst. And you can go to Harold's blog, www.halsharnblog.blogspot.com. That's www.halsharnblog.blogspot.com. That's up on your screen right now. You can email Harold homefrontbooks@alpinemontana.com, or you could go to Harold's Facebook page. Again, all of these contact informations are on your screen, or just mail $30 to Homefront Publishing, P.O. Box 55, Moyie Springs, Idaho, 83845. Again, it's on your screen. You want to read this tremendous dynamic book, An Immigrant Remembers. It was a story that as I was reading this book, I just couldn't put it down. And you won't be able to put it down either. And so you'll want to read this great story, An Immigrant Remembers by Harold Hestovich Scharnhorst. Go back, hit rewind, hit pause, so that you can get your hands on this contact information and order a copy of this great book, An Immigrant Remembers by Harold Hestovich Scharnhorst.
Horology podcast is an ED Media production.